Hi, I'm Crystal. This is the ephemera that I made based on the next batch of prompts for Dephemerember, hosted by Barbara and Louise Heinzel. The information is linked in the description box below. So the first prompt was Plaid and Polka Dots, Please Touch. And I started with a little plastic cage that comes on a wine bottle. And I got an assortment of thread, cord, ribbon, and raffia in blues and greens because these mesh sleeves are always forest green, or at least I've always seen them in forest green. And the ribbon I could put through with my fingers and it stayed in place pretty well. But for the thread and the thinner cord, I needed a plastic needle to get the thread through the squares to build my plaid. And I felt like the thread would fall out, and so I tied it in place just by tying a knot. So this was a pretty straightforward process. I liked the color assortment. Getting the ribbon in particular was really very easy, and I felt like it gave me a very nice plaid in a very unconventional sort of way, very tactile. And I added my polka dots with some seashells that were die cut from felt, because this was really giving me sea vibes, and I tied on some extra string just to add to the texture. So I like how that turned out. Now this did make for a very large piece of ephemera. You need a large journal, so if you're working in something smaller, you might want to cut it in half before you get started if you make one of these. But I do like how it turned out. Very inspiring. Makes me want to go to Galveston. So the next prompt was Nature's Treasure, and I took a very straightforward approach to this one. I built some inky backgrounds and then cut them out using some Tim Holtz dies from Sizzix in feathers and leaves. I did put a little deli paper between the inky background for the feathers and my cutting plate because of the shimmer spray, because it will transfer if you're not careful. The next prompt was a recycled fairy, and I really don't do fairies. I just don't do mythological creatures. But for this one, I mean, what's a challenge if you're not going to play along? I built a green collage, and I stamped some stitches on it. And then I got out this cherub die. It's a Tim Holtz Love Struck that I got for free at a scrapbook event. And this die is still available, so I really don't think it sold well. And I wanted to turn it from a cherub into a recycling icon. So I cut off the weaponry, and then I just cut off the cherub's back leg because I wanted to give this this character a little bit of a more vertical aspect, and that works quite well. And then there's this little bit of hair on the back of his head that I think makes him look more like Mercury or like a cherub and less like a person. So I trimmed that off. So I cut the die from my green collage, and I've got a recycled and recycling fairy. For Vintage Meets Modern, I used a book page from my vintage element, and I stenciled some more modern patterns, and then I channeled my abstract expressionism to do a little abstract paint swipe. So this is just acrylic paint that I'm spreading out. The first couple pieces that I spread onto brown packing paper, I used a piece of cardstock, but you can do this with almost any firm surface. On the next two, I used a silicone brush that's meant for applying face masks, but a grocery store loyalty card would work just as well. And just spread out the paint in a very abstract way to build my background. And that acrylic paint dries really, really quickly, so it's good for the crafter in a hurry. Then I used some letter dies to die cut month names and attach them to the background that I had built. And I think that this is really going to be useful for my 2024 journal. So I really enjoyed following these prompts for Dephemerember. And if you're playing along, I look forward to seeing your takes as well. Thanks for joining me today.